Vice President, Her Excellency Professor Jane Opoku-Agyemang, and our Beduno na Hayaka International Conference Center. After the long sick leave, Otiki, Kojia, Ewo, a year, UK Mamuno, and a day no mammy appear or stepping out in style, full of vigor and strength. Na, a year anti-corruption conference when hosti Accra Conference Center, Accra International Conference Center na wahwe ketahye ene proya ekoso wo man Ghana mu no bia yedu de ne betimi aye de asia no kwan ne ka ketahye de na Office of the Special Prosecutor untimi enyi ne mfrimunti ewra kisi ajaben na ejina ho na busuam yenko na yenkoti ehwe senia ekoso ha Ghana News TV sumidin and na sefarin bobu na usan discabo my Ghana mu a na way su lemfai yenkoti na ehwe ne ekoso.
Military development partners, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Noam Falon, and I have the honor of moderating this event with my colleague.
I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini, and you're welcome to the high-level conference on Ghana's anti-corruption architecture.
Ghana loses so much to corruption annually. Have you ever thought about quantifying it?
Revitalizing the anti-corruption architecture in Africa, Ghana's accountability journey, reminds me of the troubling refrains I hear echoing across boardrooms, markets, classrooms, and social media alike. The more laws we pass, the more people steal, and nothing happens. It is not uncommon to hear citizens ask, why can't I also make money illegally? After all, what will happen? On the streets, the sentiment is sharper. The law only catches the small fishes. The big men always walk free. Your Excellency, this is not cynicism. It is our reality that many have come to accept. If you glance through Ghana's political and legal history, you will know that this is not a new phenomenon. It is a cycle repeating itself with disappointing consistency. That is the imperfect architecture we are here gathered to confront and to rebuild with better clarity, integrity by design, and renewed political courage. There is an old Negro spiritual which probably captures the vicissitudes of the fight against corruption in our accountability journey. It goes like this. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes it's down to the ground. Our anti-corruption drive has been pockmarked by ups, downs, and sometimes downright downs. We begin by collectively acknowledging that we must fight corruption. That lights a glimmer on the horizon, accompanied by copious fanfare. On that ground, we commence the exercise of demanding and assuring accountability with righteous excitement and sometimes indignation. Each surge in corruption has been met with varied responses from coup d'etat to commissions of inquiry that generated countless reports, most of which were eventually forgotten. Even during our 4 republics, under what is termed the rule of law, the relentless cycle was and is ever present. History repeats itself. Our positions on corruption perception indices remain firm within the average region. Then the reality of the enormity of the grimness of the human condition of repelling accountability sets in. That is, no one cheerfully welcomes scrutiny. Each of us privately hopes he or she will not be accountable for their actions. On that account, and as the pushback against accountability swells, we, somewhat overwhelmed, approach the enterprise of the fight against corruption half-heartedly. Then, by way of aggression, greed and individual interest starts eroding our efforts as rules are set aside and corruption permeates through. The glimmer on the horizon dims. Then we commence the process all over again. My recall of this reflection is not in the least intended to sound despair. It is aimed at awakening in us a renewed purpose to revive.
Warriors here, this is gungulum 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 gung. This is Ghana News TV. The time is 6 o'clock. Let me follow Ghana.
So send this cafe amanoni aba Africa ha. You selem fi. Say ye fear wo pese wo ntono. You selem fi. E dan ya na say japade a wani da so a wo pese oto Africa ha no. You selem fi. So wo send this sika ama odofo e de aboa no wo Africa ha. You selem fi. Sanso e na say uti obi school fees ama no a. You selem fi. Nyenti a make cancel lem fi ama on say utimi send this sika e fa lem fi so a e ma ni begu bank account mu. Sanso e na timi begu mobile money account mu. Eno achi nso no de bia lemfi e wo daily rate a e ma hu sika dodo a wo sende a wo benya lemfi e secured na wo send this car enche na nipa a wo sende ama no ne nsaka lemfi wo USA, Canada, UK, Italy, Germany, Ireland, Netherlands, Spain, Belgium, Portugal and France. What the lemfi send this car untu ahwe bomodi a dey use me code NEWS news na say ene any day they can register or lemfi so a unya bonus sanso and now use chen so a ye wo bonuses ahodo a ye de ma.
Give us her remarks. She comes to this event with the full weight of her office. A woman with a proven track record of principled leadership, public integrity, and unwavering commitment to national development in an era where trust in public institutions has gotten very shaky. Her presence here today affirms that the fight against corruption is not just a bureaucratic duty, it is a leadership and government priority. Her Excellency, and I like to call her the first, has been a firm advocate for accountability, transparency, and institutional reform, and continues to inspire future generations anchored on integrity and justice. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and join me in warmly welcoming Her Excellency, the first woman Vice President of the Republic of Ghana, to deliver her remarks.
And at the same time, to especially welcome our relatives from outside our artificial borders, and to wish our Muslim relatives a very happy Eid. Revitalizing the anti-corruption architecture. Very important theme. We know that Ghana has long positioned herself as a pioneer in our continent's anti-corruption efforts. We were among the first of the nations to ratify the AU Convention on Preventing and Combating anti-corruption in 2007, and we demonstrated our early commitment to continental standards by submitting the first baseline report to the AU ABC. Our anti-corruption architecture is built on solid foundations. We have the 1992 Constitution and comprehensive legislation, including the Criminal Offences Act, Whistleblowers Act of 2006, the Right to Information Act of 2019, and the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor in 2017. Our engagement with the AU-ABC review process exemplifies our commitment to continental accountability standards, which we take very, very seriously. And our commitment to this inclusive approach is evident in our support for investigative journalism, civil society advocacy, and the creation of platforms for citizen engagement in anti-corruption efforts. We need to confront the hard truths. However, despite our strong institutional framework, Ghana's performance on key corruption indicators has stagnated and in some cases declined. This is according to the data from the 2024 Corruption Perception Index, the Ibrahim Index of African Governance, and our own 2022 Ghana Statistical Service Corruption Report, which revealed that nearly 5 billion Ghana cedis was lost to bribery alone in 1 year. This cannot be funny. The IMF's assessment that our control of corruption has deteriorated over the last decade, despite outperforming many sub-Saharan peers in other governance aspects, underscores the urgency of our revitalization efforts. And this is where leadership comes in. Let us consider the commitment of the Mahama administration. His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama has demonstrated his commitment to revitalizing Ghana's anti-corruption architecture. Operation Recover All Loots, or ORAL, is an effort to send a clear message that corruption will not be tolerated. The launch of a comprehensive code of conduct for all presidential appointees establishes clear ethical standards from the highest levels of government. His commitment to reviewing the 1992 Constitution to make it fit for purpose to meet our current governance challenges is yet another demonstration of the President's commitment to fight against corruption. The appointment of a presidential advisor on the National Anti-Corruption Program, the first of its kind since 1992, represents a strategic approach to coordinating our efforts. This office has identified 5 key areas that will anchor our revitalization efforts, including cooperating between anti-corruption agencies, partnerships with the state interests, and governance authority to ensure integrity, provide assurance of domestic and international communities, proposing legislative and policy reforms, and supporting the Attorney General's office in receiving and processing corruption complaints. So what is a path forward? Revitalizing Ghana's anti-corruption architecture requires bold actions across multiple fronts. We must legislate and revitalize unexplained world orders, extending their application to both public officials and private citizens while anchoring the principle of reverse burden of proof in our Constitution. The revised conduct of public officers bill will onboard the views of CSOs, anti-corruption institutions, the media, academia, the international community, and all relevant stakeholders to ensure that this bill stands the test of time. The bill will be open to a comprehensive engagement by all stakeholders, and its content and passage will once again demonstrate our commitment to accountability and the fight against corruption. Definitely, you talked about the asset declaration, and I agree with the major points you have made. We must ensure also that we have sustainable financing for anti-corruption institutions to reduce their influence and also to enhance their independence. The financing of political parties and national elections must be regulated through comprehensive legislation that addresses both internal party leadership selection and national campaign funding. We need to engage our citizens. No anti-corruption architecture can succeed without active citizen engagement. Civil society organizations, investigative journalists, and ordinary citizens will be the partners in this fight. The Right to Information Act has empowered citizens to demand transparency, but we must do more to educate all of us about our rights and provide accessible channels for reporting corruption. And youth engagement, where are the youth? Are they here? Your voices are too low. I'm happy to see you here. Your engagement is particularly crucial. Young Africans represent our continent's greatest asset. You are the asset. Your digital nativity offers opportunities to leverage technology for transparency and accountability. We must create platforms for meaningful youth participation in anti-corruption efforts, recognizing that you will inherit the systems we build today. I believe you heard me. Thank you. The economic case for fighting corruption has never been clearer, as Africa requires an estimated $2.8 trillion in financing to meet climate adaptation needs. Every dollar lost to corruption represents a missed opportunity. Ghana's economic recovery and long-term prosperity depend on our ability to demonstrate that we are reliable stewards of public resources. International investors, development partners, and our own citizens need the confidence that their contributions will be used effectively and transparently. So, looking ahead, as we revitalize our anti-corruption architecture, Ghana has the opportunity to reclaim its position as a continental leader in accountability reforms. Our early participation in the AU-ABC review process, combined with our democratic traditions, vibrant civil society, and institutional foundations, provides a strong platform for this leadership. However, leadership requires not just intentions, but measurable results. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, allow me to conclude. The theme of revitalizing Africa's anti-corruption architecture acknowledges our achievements and shortcomings. It recognizes that building integrity systems is not a destination, but a continuous journey requiring constant renewal and adaptation. We must remember that corruption is not inevitable. It is a choice to prioritize personal gain over public good, short-term benefits over long-term development, and narrow interests over national progress. Equally, the fight against corruption is a choice to demand better from our leaders and from ourselves, and to build the Africa our children deserve. Let us recommit ourselves to this fight, to revitalize our institutions, strengthen our laws, empower our citizens, and work together across borders. And I like the across borders, because we know that our borders are artificial, and we need to work together. We need to work across borders to build an Africa that is truly prosperous and peaceful, driven by its own citizens, and guided by the principles of integrity, transparency, and accountability. This is a journey we must continue. We know that together we will succeed. I want to thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. So much discipline and integrity. I wonder why we didn't get a woman vice president earlier than this. In fact, a woman president. Why has it taken so long? That should be one of our biggest targets going forward. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you. Opobia. She was here of, yes, of Ghana Airport. Erica J. NEIP. Please give us a, we didn't see it. Thank you. Madam Margaret Sansei, forward. Right. Media team, please be ready. Ministers, deputies, please join her. Ministers. AUABC team, please get ready. Please join them. I understand we're also joined by the Honorable Lydia Lamisi Akambariba. All the persons who want to take pictures, so my apologies there. We have some schools in the house. I've not been feeling your energy. Laboni Senior High School, are you here? Let me hear you, Adi. Laboni Senior High School. Accra Girls Senior High School. Yeah. Kimbu Senior High School. Yeah, that was a good one. St. Thomas Aquinas. The special ones. Every Girls. When I was in the Greek Girls, when we say the sky is blue, yeah, the sky is blue. Prz boys. University of Ghana. University of Professional Studies.
Here, General Ankara, one of the main architects of the overthrow of Nkrumah in 1966, he said, We have been called upon to rescue the nation from the tyranny and corrupt practices of the past administration, unquote. A few days later, the National Liberation Council stated on the radio, quote, we want to establish a government based on honesty, transparency, and integrity, values which had been eroded by Nkrumah's corrupt one-party dictatorship. This was in 1966. Then on 13 January 1972, when the champion overthrew the Buzia regime, he addressed us that, quote, there is a growing gap between the rulers and the ruled, fueled by greed, favoritism, and corruption. This was 72. Then General Ekufu, who staged the palace school a few weeks after I was born, in 1978, by sacking a champion, declared that, quote, there is a deliberate and cynical disregard for accountability in the use of public resources by some officials, unquote. This was in 1978. On his second military adventure on New Year's Eve 1981, Rawlins, upon overthrowing the Liman government, lamented, during the Liman administration, serious allegations of corruption against top functionaries and party intrigue, even in parliament, became a matter of idle gossip. Among the big men, it was even possible to arrive at settlements, sometimes judicially sanctioned, of these affairs. The wealth of the nation was merely the playground of its leaders, unquote. This was in March 1982. Then we adopted our present constitution into force in 1993, in which we proudly declared the principle of probity and accountability built on a complex system of checks and balances. On the international scene, we ratified the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, ANCAC, on 24 June 2007, and the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption around the same time. Under the Constitution, we established the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, and tried to clothe it with anti-corruption mandates under Article 218E of the Constitution. We then created the Serious Fraud Office, which we rechristened the Economic and Organized Crime Office, YOCO, to tackle economic crimes with a sidewind criminal anti-corruption mandate. 20 years after running this model, it became clear that the SHRAJ anti-corruption model was impractical and it was not working. This is because SHRAJ's real intended purpose, as the National Human Rights Commission and the Ombudsman, rendered it unsuitable to fight corruption in the real sense, and the Article 218E mandate was clearly a stopgap measure for a much more robust and concrete future anti-corruption regime. Further, it saddled SHRAJ with dilapidating inundation, as it lacked any real power in the anti-corruption space, as its mandate does not involve any sanctions. This is because it is required merely to circuitously forward the outcome of its anti-corruption investigations to the Attorney General and the Auditor General. The YOCO setup was also not optimal. This was mainly because YOCO is an agency under the Attorney General's Department and is invariably able only to institute criminal proceedings on the say-so of the Attorney General. This rendered it incapable of tackling corruption, especially regarding political actors and politically exposed persons. The need for an independent institution with an effective and all-encompassing anti-corruption mandate became increasingly pronounced, especially during the institution of the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, NACAP, in 2014. The underlying philosophy of the NACAP is the recommendation of the establishment of an independent prosecution authority to effectively tackle corruption. The thinking was that the Attorney General, being a member of Cabinet and the chief legal advisor to the government, is not well suited to investigate and prosecute members of a government to which he belonged. There is still immense force in this thinking, Your Excellency. This was the chief consideration that informed the passage of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, Act 959, which established the Office of the Special Prosecutor in 2018 as a flagship anti-corruption institution of the Republic with a unique fourfold mandate of investigating corruption and corruption-related cases, prosecuting suspected offenders, recovering and managing assets, and taking steps to prevent corruption. Intended as fulfillment of a campaign promise during the 2016 presidential election process, the OSP is actually the satisfaction of Ghana's treaty obligations under Articles 6 and 36 of ANCAC. that requires state parties to establish independent specialized authorities to combat corruption through law enforcement, and Article 5.3 of the African Union Convention. Its outlook is also intended as founded on the Jakarta Statement on Principles for Anti-Corruption Agencies pronounced in November 2012 by parties to ANCAC. Your Excellency, the OSP model represents our best bet in tackling corruption, and upon this architecture, it is a unique and never-before-seen remedy designed as a cure of the inadequacies of the traditional methods we had previously adopted, which are characterized by the lack of real legal and enforcement powers and independence of action, as the model retains total control over the initiation of the conduct of investigations and the institution of criminal proceedings. Then again, the model affords political neutrality and non-selectiveness in the fight against corruption. For the first time in our history, the OSP model forcefully carries the fight against corruption not only in the province of public officers and public life, but also among politically exposed persons and persons in the private sector. The model is not without its shortcomings, as is suffered by every human construct. Yet we have a golden opportunity to, once again, retool and reshape it to fit our purposes during the current exercise of constitutional review. On this score, it must be borne in mind that the fight against corruption is multifaceted. First, the law always appears to be a step behind criminal innovation, and as technological advancement ushers in marvels hitherto unknown, perpetrators of corruption devise sophisticated ways adapted to avoid detection. Second, truth is always the first casualty in any criminal inquiry. Those who engage in grand corruption are wealthy. They possess the means and wherewithal to mount formidable campaigns of misinformation and truth distortion. They also pose a real and present danger to anti-corruption officials through intimidation, open threats, and actual harm, even to the point of killing. After all, I would like to say, wealth equals protection, and power is immunity from scrutiny. Third, corrupt activities are the most difficult to prove, as they are carried out in stealth, and the state of mind accompanying such acts are often well-tight, shrouded, and unregulated by clear criminal constructs. Fourth, corruption prevention is preferable to after-the-fact models of fighting corruption. It is more productive and cost-effective. Better to prevent the outbreak of a stitch than to seek to sow it after it ensues. These pragmatic considerations should guide our plans on this architecture. The focus should be on a system which will stand the test of time, Your Excellency. With this in mind, that while no anti-corruption system is fail-safe, ours should be reasonably able to withstand attack. On this reckoning, we should highlight lifestyle audit non-conviction-based asset recovery. Global anti-corruption best practices indicate that broad-based lifestyle audit, non-conviction-based asset recovery, presents the fairest and optimal method of frontally addressing corruption and unexplained wealth in both public and private contexts, though it is not without controversy. However, it is gratifying to note the receptiveness of our jurisprudence of lifestyle audit under Article 2864 of the Constitution. However, it is strictly limited in scope and outlook, as it only applies to certain public officers and only in respect of the asset declaration regime. Then again, there is no prescribed sanction beyond the declaration that property or assets acquired after the initial declaration of assets and which are not reasonably attributable to reasonable sources will be deemed to have been acquired in contravention of the Constitution. Further, this problem is exacerbated by the fact that our criminal anti-corruption provisions in the Criminal Offences Act 1960, Act 29, and other enactments look primarily to public officers. Private persons are only implicated if they corrupt or seek to corrupt public officers. Otherwise, private persons are not within the purview of our traditional anti-corruption fight. It is for the above and other considerations that the advent of the OSP regime took the fight against corruption beyond our traditional arena of public life and situated the fight squarely among public officers, politically exposed persons, and persons in the private sector, as reflected in the long title of the Act and copious sections under the Act in the specific context of asset recovery. That is the third mandate of the OSP, which is to recover and manage the proceeds of corruption and corruption-related offenses in relation to public officers, politically exposed persons, as well as persons in the private sector. However, this mandate is largely in the context of conviction-based proceedings, though the OSP is mandated to exercise limited aspects of civil asset recovery under its declaration of property and income regime. Therefore, Your Excellency, the principle of lifestyle audit non-conviction-based asset recovery should be stamped in the Constitution to encompass public officers, politically exposed persons, and persons in the private sector suspected of having engaged or engaging in corruption and corruption-related activities, on the reckoning that the person must have legitimate sources of income sufficient to justify the interest in any property that that person holds. Therefore, where a person's resources far outstrip his legitimate income, the unexplained portion should be liable to confiscation. This will be a critical tool also to detect fraud and undeclared income for tax purposes. Thus, conviction after criminal proceedings should not be a condition precedent for asset recovery purposes. That is, proceedings on an application for a confiscation order or a restraint order should be civil and not criminal. Then again, the rules of evidence applicable to civil proceedings should apply to confiscation and restraint proceedings, and confiscation orders should have the effect of a judgment of the High Court appealable to the Court of Appeal. In relation to this, there should also be a reverse onus clause of a presumption of corruption tied to lifestyle audit. That is to say, in all proceedings, civil and criminal, there should be a presumption of corruption. One, where a person, whether in public or private life, is in possession of property or resources for which he cannot satisfactorily account for, or pecuniary resources and property disproportionate to his known legitimate sources of income, should be deemed to have been obtained or received through corrupt means. And two, a gift to a public officer by a person who has or seeks to have any dealings with a government or public agency should be deemed to have been given and received corruptly as an inducement or reward. Further, there should be a more robust and effective asset declaration mechanism in respect of public officers and persons undergoing lifestyle audit to close the loop on the amassing of illicit wealth and to enhance accountability. We should move beyond mere repositories to a system of verification and tracing undeclared assets. However, and I'm coming to disappoint some of you, I do not, and I will not add my voice to calls for the publication of assets for public scrutiny. In our experience, it would be unhelpful and would merely subject public officers to inordinate public curiosity and the specter of the real likelihood of reprisals against their assets. In my estimation, a publication of who has declared or has not declared his assets in the context of a workable asset verification and tracing model would be sufficient to assure the integrity of the asset declaration system. I dare say, corruption begins where values collapse. That is why integrity must be designed into our educational system, from the basic level through to the tertiary level. And I'm looking at students. A student who regards a corrupt businessman as his or her role model would invariably emulate him without remorse. Do not do so. Thank you. A society in which the youth adore and celebrate ill wealth would only reap get-rich, corrupt, and fraudulent practices. I cannot state all that is on my mind on our accountability journey at this stage, Your Excellency, except to say that we must strive to change the narrative and fashion our own course and course by keeping the glimmer on the horizon glowing until the light beckons closer and shines overhead in a just and prosperous trajectory. let me try and add my own version to the old Negro spiritual I alluded to when I began. Remember, I said it goes, sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes it's down to the ground. I want to re-sing it. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, and even when it's down, we shall keep the lights up. Thank you.
And the challenge you have given us. So Your Excellency takes leave of us. We will be calling on our panelists and discussants for this very important segment. I'm seeing very, very important VVIP persons here in the anti-corruption area, also the former Auditor General.
Follow and watch Ghana News TV.
So send this cafe amanoni aba Africa ha Usulemfi. Say ye fear wo pese wo ntono Usulemfi. Edan ya na say japade a wani da so a pese oto wa Africa ha no Usulemfi. Say wo send this sika ama odofo e de aboa no wo Africa ha Usulemfi. Sanso e na say wo tie obi school fees ama no a Usulemfi. Nyenti American full Lemfi ama one say utimi send this sika e fa Lemfi so a e ma ni begu bank account mu sanso e na timi begu mobile money account mu. Enu achi nso no de bia Lemfi e wo daily rate a e ma hu sika dodo a wo send a wo benya Lemfi e secured na wo send this car enche na nipa wo send ama no ne nsa aka Lemfi wo USA, Canada, UK, Italy, Germany, Ireland, Netherlands, Spain, Belgium, Portugal and France. What the Lemfi send this car untu ahwe bomodi an dey use me code NEWS news na say ene any day di kan register or Lemfi so a unya bonus sanso and you use chance so a ye wo bonuses ahodo a ye de ma
Menu makwekwe sa sempa kania. Se menam na meti asempa no ma mo amane a na ma no keka me. Anyem bia what ANS Trading Agency Limited nka. Se wo ka se door to door for no de na e watwa. E sense wo bia ne wa wo say wo sa door to door business nim. Wo nneoma wo UK a wo de kwa Ghana. Ana se Germany a wo de kwa Ghana. 3 to 5 weeks e be kwa kodu nipa ne punu anu say try. Na de mo demonstration wo se adwuma de we mu ne se wo mo bo no. E da form say boko. ANS Trading Agency Limited. E wo air freight special service. And nneoma ne ye de be fa plane. Entintempa na akwa kodu. Obetima for South Africa we also the new free Ghana, akwa UK and Germany. FAGG them, which na also na ye, na men drop bomb. ANS Trading Agency Limited pe, and a 40-footer, any 20-footer container. For UK, ediko Ghana, and Germany, ediko Ghana. Oma manioma yemre, import to, export to, them there for you. Omo Ghana na money 0249 170 423. UK has over fraya 0790 802 7527. Germany 09173 771 2733. Ubenya ANS Trading Agency Limited. Our West Croydon ANS Trading Agency Limited. Quantum Brantem. Wana bebo ya baso. Maybe next time in your fill up from the bebro.